Hey, everybody, welcome to Talking Tower. Some people talk shop. Hey, we're Talking Tower. I'm Z Garcia, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Thomason.
And I'm Mark Streed.
There you go. And so today we're going to be a bunch of talking heads talking about how to house rule. But before we get to that, as we are always going to do, we're going to start with a little quick fire round of over-under. What are we talking about? Well, topical things, what's happening out there in board gaming or otherwise, and we're going to be discussing whether we think these things are overhyped, underappreciated. How are we feeling about it? So, let's kick it off right away. First up, Aquaman extended trailer. What do you guys think?
Loved it. It was awesome.
I was pretty happy with it too.
Yeah.
The first Aquaman trailer that I saw, I was like, I don't know. This is more
Right?
of the same.
And folks are saying
new
it's
ones?
like Surfer Bro or whatever, right? But no, I think Aquaman is finally cool.
Yeah, he definitely went up a notch watching that extended one. That changed the game entirely.
And did you
agree.
get the sense that this Aquaman movie is brighter in color than all the other Justice League related stuff? He even put him in his suit that you expect to see him in. And I had the same feeling that Guardians of the Galaxy gave, where I think Aquaman might be the game changer for DC.
That would be so
Well,
awesome.
they know Wonder Woman was a hit, and that was the less dreary one of all the ones they've done so far. So
Right.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this is going to be more flash pop than some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Let me put it that way. I keep hoping. I'm like, please let this be more like Wonder Woman. Please, 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 please. But, I also worry because sometimes they have those previews where they show all the good stuff and you don't see anything new.
There is that, for sure.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I'm going with that too. Cautiously optimistic.
I'm super excited.
Next up, some people are saying there's too many pandemic spin-offs.
What?
Overhyped or not enough pandemic spin-offs.
Is that possible?
I am perfectly content with the pandemic spin-offs. Obviously, I might be slightly biased. But honestly, man, I mean, the last one, Rising Tide, I thought was an all-right game. I mean, I still rated it like a 7 or something.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good game, but it was no, original Pandemic or Iberia,
Right.
But they can keep announcing them, and I still get excited about them if they look good, and usually they do.
Yeah, they've got a fan base. Why not, appease the fan base? You've got this great game, and they're able to, re-sleeve it with some great twists. Keep doing it.
Yeah. And
I mean, do you think that can be taken too far, though?
Possibly.
I don't know.
I mean, if they keep doing that for a few more years, and it's every, you're like, oh, look, it's purple now instead of, I don't know.
it's
Pandemic, purple edition.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Okay, then it's going to start getting a little old. I'm just saying. But
Yeah, possibly. I mean, but look at obviously we're not fans, but Monopoly has been doing this forever, right? Why can't Pandemic do the same thing and still be just as popular?
people are still buying it. I mean, they're still doing that with Monopoly, and it's working.
Right.
So if it's working for Pandemic, I don't see why not.
Absolutely.
I agree, though I will say, really excited about Fall of Rome, kind of lukewarm about the 10th anniversary edition. I was not
Really?
wowed. I'm not wowed by the way that looks.
I thought for sure you would be wowed by that.
And it's $100.
Yeah,
That's true.
Crazy.
That's true.
So
Anyway.
did you get to play the Rome one?
I have not played it yet. Maybe when you're seeing this, I have played it, but so far I haven't played.
Okay.
All right, next up, Sagrada and Azul 2, which is the stained glass one. Too close for comfort.
Too
Overhyped?
close.
Too big of a deal about that? Or you just don't see it?
I think it's too close for comfort. And I personally think Azul is completely overrated. Oh,
What?
absolutely. I'd rather play Reef. It's such a better game. It's so much better.
I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed Reef, but man, Azul, I don't know. There's something addicting to me with that game. I
That's
love
good.
playing the game.
I'm glad you like it. By the third turn, I was like, "Is this over yet?"
Wow.
I really disliked it. And I think it's because I think the main reason for me is because it was overhyped. I mean, it was so hyped. You're going to love it. It's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm like, it is?
Oh,
No, it's not.
yeah. Gotcha.
But so what about you, Rebecca? Do you think that the sequel with the stained glass theme is too close to Sagrada? Does it feel like a move to add it? Does it seem aggressive?
It does seem like it's a move towards it. It's like, hey, you're nudging in on my turf, So I could see it. I could totally see it.
Okay, I fall in the other camp on this one. I actually don't see that as being a predatory move or anything. I think it's a fairly logical next step. We were laying tiles, now we're laying tiles made of glass. There's not a whole lot of other kinds of tiles that are not ceramic or glass.
Okay.
That's a valid point.
Yeah. Valid.
I think it looks too similar to me. I don't like it.
All right. Next up, Oscar's new category, Outstanding Popular Film. Did they need to do this? Do you think does this invalidate other movies that the Oscars reward? What do you think about it?
I don't like it, quite frankly. It was just like, yay, you're doing well. Here, have an award. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a gimme. I don't like it at all. I think it does hurt the others.
I think it's the Oscars trying to save face because the movies that should be winning, this is the one that this category those movies will get that.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. And what is this based on exactly? Is this money making? I mean, or is this?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it is money and fan based, possibly both.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something behind the scenes there where they're. Oh, we gotta save face.
Exactly. We get the mob with the pitchforks, right? They're having to count because their movies aren't winning, but they're doing so well at the box office, and they're like, okay, this was their appeasing the crowd.
Yeah.
It seems like a desperation move to stay relevant to an audience that's perhaps giving up on the Oscars.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, Deadpool PG-13 cut coming to theaters later on this year. What do you think about this? Is this not something that was needed whatsoever, or do you see it as a good move? What are you thinking?
It was not needed. Even in the comic books, that's not what Deadpool's been about. I mean, the fact that they did an R movie for Deadpool was like, yes, that's what you should do. Right. And for them to take a step back seems really like a money grab.
I think it is. Yeah. It's like they're trying to get to that wider crowd, right?
That. Yeah, that's definitely a money move. I mean, there's no other reason to do it. Though from what I hear, it's not the exact same movie cut to a PG-13 frame. I hear there might be a couple of small changes. Now, I don't think they did any reshoots, so I'm not sure how they're going to go about that. That's what I've heard.
Huh, okay. Because what I read, it just seemed to indicate they were just going to cut it down, like a made-for-TV movie kind of thing.
Really?
Right.
I mean, that's the way the article read to me, is that if you see like Terminator on regular TV, how they cut that down, that's the way this came across to me.
Right. I definitely would say it was not a necessity, and it's not like the movie did so badly that they are trying to scrape together their budget.
Yeah, definitely for
sure. So, yeah, kind of boo on that one from me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So, guys, let's go ahead and talk about house ruling, how to house rule. So, before anything else, what do we mean by house ruling? How do you define house ruling? This is probably a pretty obvious thing, I would assume, but we're going to put it out there anyway because we want to be thorough. So, why don't you each take a crack at it? What is house ruling? What do we mean by it?
Simply, for us, it's all about adding additional rules to the game, or, like, for instance, when you roll a dice and it's kind of cattywampus, whatever, off kilter, you're like, oh, can I take that value anyway? Sure. You know, that's one of those house rule things in our house. They're like, just roll it again or whatever. But it really is an addendum to the rules for the most part. And there's also get rid of a rule and put this new rule in. So, I mean, it's really revisionist history.
It is. That's how ours is too. It's purely situational, because if we're going to need a house rule, there's either a rule that we find in the game that's not working, or there's something like situational with like the way we're playing or something. We need to fix something. Again, like you said, a cock to die or something weird like that, just with a particular game that we fix on the fly. It's usually on the fly, and then it usually works and it sticks. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. It's something that you encounter as you are going, and you go, okay, we need to make a call on this right now.
Yes.
But you'll probably stick with that call, assuming it worked out and you liked it for any future plays of that, right?
Yep.
Usually.
So how do you feel about house ruling? How do you? I mean, do you think it's fine to house rule games?
For me,
I think it.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just saying, I think it's fine in a casual situation, but if you're like with a hardcore gaming group, it doesn't usually go over well. At least my experience. But in a casual, just conversational game, you're just there having fun. House ruling is like, sure, let's do that, and that's kind of where it comes from for me.
Yeah,
Right.
Same thing. It's usually casual environment. Although if we're playing it that seriously that you need a house rule for a serious game, I would think there's probably something wrong with the game. Usually.
Oh.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so question. Do you? And by the way, I do the same thing. For me, I'm actually a little less forgiving, I think, than definitely Mark, where I think house ruling is fine to do. I actually, for the most part, have a problem with house ruling. I think if it is necessary, it's indicative of an issue that just shouldn't have been there in the first place. I mean, I'll do it if we have to, but I will be soured by the experience more than likely, okay?
Right.
So
So here's a great example then, Z. What about Zombicide Black Plague? You have a ton of house rules for that, don't you?
Oh, tons. Yes,
Yep.
I do. I usually do play that solitaire, so I haven't had to come up against that wall in which I have to sort of break it to the rest of the group that, guys, I might have messed with this a little bit. You're not really playing Zombicide Black Plague. So yeah, I haven't had that problem. I just made that game work for me.
Okay.
And I haven't felt too bad about it. Again, if I'm playing just by myself, but I still do take issue with the fact that I had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make the game be fun, in my opinion, right? Anyway, all right. So let's say you played the game, you came up against that situation where you had to house rule something, and then you play that same game a week from now with a different group. Do you inform that group that there is a house rule in there that you put in the game, or do you just play and see what kind of response you get from the group and don't even mention it, right? Which way do you go with this?
So we always throw it out there, and usually it's an example like, hey, last time we played this, we tried this, and it was really fun. What do you guys think? It's kind of that kind of thing. So
Absolutely. We do the exact same thing. We go through the rules. Again, this is obviously a casual situation anyway, and we introduce it and say, hey, we also tried doing this instead. What do you guys think? Put it to a vote. If everybody's good with it, we go with the house rule.
You guys are way more democratic than I am. 'Cause I just play the way that I played, and it worked. And once I'm done, maybe I'll be like, oh, yeah, by the way, if you really liked it and you decide to go and get a copy because you were so fascinated, this one part isn't actually what it says in the rule book. We played that slightly differently.
Oh,
But
that's
you liked
hilarious.
it,
Well,
hopefully.
that
right?
is a
You
good
liked
point,
this, that's
though.
good.
That's a really good point,
It
because
is.
if you have a lot of beginner players, it might be easier and better just to put it that way, right? Because if they're making decisions they don't know anything about yet, then, if you got gamers that board game all the time, it may not be as big a
Yeah.
deal to introduce a house rule. But yeah, if it's something where you're like, ooh, I don't want to confuse anybody, I would definitely want
Right.
to put it forward just like, hey, this is the rule. I like that.
And it's probably a minor thing anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't rewrite the
is.
Yeah.
whole rule book, but if there's something that didn't seem right, at the beginning everybody gets 5 cards instead of 4.
Yeah.
Then you just get 5 cards, and we'll deal with it later if,
Yeah.
if you decide you really love the game and want to get it. I'll just mention, you actually get 4 in the rule book, but 5 felt right, didn't it? Yeah, it did. Cool. Then we're done,
awesome.
Yeah.
Man, now I want to try this, because usually I throw it out. I always say, yeah, this is different. But now I kind of want it's like being subversive. Oh yeah, that's just how
Yeah.
it is.
Well, here's the thing. Here's where I'm coming from for this. I come from theater, and in theater, there's this thing where if you go to an audition, at least this is something I've heard. If you go to an audition, you're about to sing a piece of a song for the audition, and you've been sick. You don't mention that you've been sick and do that pre-apology thing, right? This is the same situation where you go, by the way, this rule didn't feel right, so I changed it. Why do you not do that? Because the people sitting there, the people auditioning, or in this example, the other players, then stop listening to you sing or, stop playing the game, and instead start trying to see if they are good enough that they can pick up on this thing that you told them you had. And so they're listening going, yeah, I can hear that their voice is a little raspy at the bottom. Yeah, they were sick. You just don't mention it. And if they noticed, then they're fantastic and that's great. But they're probably not going to notice because they're not looking for it. And this is the same thing. If I don't tell you that the game was originally played with a hand of 4 cards, then you're not sitting there when I start going, yeah, this is maybe too many choices. I think if it was 4 cards, it would have made the beginning a little more interesting where I have a struggle. You wouldn't have thought about it. You would have just assumed it's with 5 cards, had yourself a good time. That's kind of how I feel about that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
It makes sense, but again, I think it's situational. Because there's some games and when things happen that you really need to bring it up right away because it might change the game, like you said. Or if it's something like that where it's inconsequential, then it works. But again, it's, I don't know. I hate to say hard and fast, oh, this is where I stand, because I don't. It's different with any of the different games that we've house ruled. Well, even, for example, today, I've never house ruled Spyfall before.
Okay.
But with my board game club, I had somebody that would just, boom, people weren't even able to play their roles. He was, I don't know if he's just a good poker player or what, but he was reading people, and he was making accusations right and left. So finally I was like, okay, everyone's got to have a question before we make an accusation. Something, because he was just flying through. And so, obviously, I'm not going to set that as a rule for every game, but it's something that needed to be done and work so that everybody can actually experience the game.
Yeah, that's interesting. So was this person making an accusation before hearing everyone out?
Yeah. He was reading people's tells like you would not believe. Yes. It was impressive.
It's amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. But because of that, we had to make a little tweak. And of course, that one is not I'm not going to probably ever, hopefully, use that again. But
right. Well, that's
again,
interesting.
Like you said, that was one you came up with on the fly, right? Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So is that a house rule for the game, or is that something you changed because of a player? And is there a difference?
I would call it a house rule because it's now a rule that we had to use, but more of a temporary house rule, if that makes sense. That's what I would do.
Yeah, sure, I get that, but it deals with an issue, perceived issue even, that stemmed from a player, not from the game.
True.
Right.
Or is that always the case? Is it always an issue with the player? Because while I think that Zombicide Black Plague needs a couple of tweaks, clearly I assume the designers didn't, and I assume many, many playtesters didn't, and people who play the game as is. So is that a perceived issue that I have anyway? Is it a problem with me anyway?
Probably.
I don't know. I honestly, to answer your question, I think it's like most of the time that we have a house rule, it's a problem with the game.
Yeah, I would agree. It's exactly that. It's usually a problem with the game, not the player.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think I do. So I mentioned Zombicide Black Plague. You mentioned Spyfall. Let's think specifics here. Can you two think of any other games that you specifically house ruled, and why have you found yourself doing it?
What is the one? So for years, with the kids, we played Bonanza. We had Pizza Night and Bonanza, right? And what is the thing with Bonanza about planting? You can't pick up the deck unless you've had at least 2 cards down or something like that. Anyway, it just turned out with the kids.
Right. You can't sell a field unless it's got 2 beans in it.
That's what
like
it is. That's what it is. And so because of the things weren't flowing with the kids as well, we took that out completely. And again, maybe that was more of because we're just trying to make it easier for the kids to play, but it ended up over the years just being a house rule, right?
Well, I'll tell you this. I have the version of Bonanza that I own in this moment is one called Bonanza Fun and Easy.
Oh.
It's the same game, largely, and there's a couple of small variations in it. That is one of them.
Ah, yes.
You can just sell whichever bean you want.
Right.
You also, I think, start with 3 anyway. You don't have to buy the third.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
Because it was one of those things that was... people would just buy the third anyway.
Yep.
Like, basically everyone did it. You give up 2 coins and buy the third. So you just start with all of the bean fields, and you can, sell one or empty one field, even if it wouldn't make you any money, and even if it's got a single bean card in there.
Right.
So
And that
you were ahead. You, Mark Streed, were ahead of the curve.
head of the curve. Which
For
it's so
Uwe
funny because
Rosenberg.
it just frustrated our girls so much. So
Sure.
that's why we made the change. And it just made the game flow so much easier for them and for the night. And it was just ended up being a really fun thing. And a quick story on that game is that I don't know what it is about that game, the graphics on the beans, but I just remember everything that's been played. And so my girls would always, Dad, you cheat. I said, how do I cheat? Because you remember the cards.
Love it.
Oh, nice. You have to get the one that has the 20th anniversary edition, I think it is. And all the cards have different artwork, so you won't be able to remember.
I really
That'll
liked.
help.
Eric showed me a little dice one, and what's the dice one called? I can't think of it. Anyway, it's really fun.
Bonanza, the dice game, I think.
Yeah, no, there's a name. Werfel Bonanza. That's what it is.
Well, that means dice
Dice.
in German.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying the way it's labeled on the box. Anyway, the thing about that game is that we've played that one so much now that we've wore the dice out. Everything's rubbed off, so we've had to get
Wow.
another copy of it.
Nice.
That's good. I mean, you got your money's worth out of that first one. That's
absolutely.
for sure. All right, Rebecca, what do you got? Anything specific you can think of?
One that we just played again recently, actually, that we house ruled was Biblios. Hunter and I, that's like one of our go-to 2-player games for whatever reason. And it can play up to 4 players, but we always end up playing it 2 players, like our waiting in line game or something. And
Okay.
to spice it up, the dice there, they're really mostly decorative. So we decided that instead of setting them at the, I think you set it at 3, for the points for the game, instead we roll the dice. And as long as they are not 1s or 6s, we let them, and we roll them until they're not 1s and 6s, and then we play the game. And that's our house rule. We always do that now. And it just kind of changes the dynamic of the game. So now you might want to avoid one because it's only 2 points, or spend all your energies building that up if you happen to have all those cards. There's a lot more play going on with that. We have a lot of fun with it that way. So
That sounds like a fantastic house rule. Now, I don't
It does.
normally play Biblios with 2. I say
Yeah,
that's a
me
3.
either.
That's a 3-player game.
Yeah.
But I do like that. I do like that idea of just rolling the dice and making sure they're not the extremes. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that
But
a lot.
honestly, the reason that game doesn't really get much table at time anymore for me is because it is a little too static, and it ultimately comes down to
Yep.
not how much do my dice add up to, but did I win more than 1? If so,
Yeah.
I probably won.
Yeah.
It just kind of evens out in the middle
Yep.
somewhere, and them
Yep.
all starting at 3 certainly doesn't help that. So I do like that variant. I think that's cool.
I do like the very too, and for the same reason Z said, that the game has become static for me. I just haven't pulled out forever at this point,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and we played the tar out of it for the longest time, and it worked really well just to kind of mix it up, because then too, it's like, ooh, is he going to go for that? And then I need to be trying to knock these points down, or it just seems like there's a little bit of an unknown variable going on there, and it's a little more of a tug of war with just the 2 people. So you also, like you said, with the Bonanza game, you want to remember what everybody's been playing and keep track of that. And usually if we're waiting in line or doing something, we're kind of distracted too. It's perfect. I love
Right.
it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, one I mentioned, Mark mentioned Zombicide. That's one I definitely have modded quite a bit. And we'll talk about that at the end of the discussion here, where that line falls between, a little house rule and fixing the game.
Yeah.
But one I do have, one I have played and have modified is a game, I'm not sure if you've played it, called Lascaux, like the cave paintings in Lascaux. It's kind of like No Thanks.
Oh.
And you
okay.
are, you leave a pebble in the middle, and For everyone you leave in the middle, you're passing, right? And you don't have to take yet. But then what you do at the beginning is you flop over some cards openly. They have 2 colors and they have a critter in the middle, a cave painting. You're just trying to collect the same kind. And you decide before you even start that no thanks type bidding which color you want to collect. And, the colors, again, every card has 2 colors. So I might see, brown, pink, blue, brown, something, brown. I'm like, okay, well, there's 3 brown out there. I'm going to take that. So I take that token, but I don't show it yet. As the bidding happens, when I have to drop out or I want to drop out, I put that token on the bottom of a stack. And everybody else who passes after me goes on top. And so if someone has brown, they claimed brown, but it happened at, before me, meaning they stayed in that bidding longer. When it comes to brown, I get nothing whatsoever. That's interesting, except sometimes the way it works out is, winner of the round gets blue. Second place, blue. They can walk away with nothing. And then third place, green, and they did better than second place. That's a little strange, and it's hard to predict what people are going to go for anyway. It's a double think thing. So what I decided to do is, instead of having, 5 or 6 cards revealed, I do that, and then I always have one in the pot, 1 card face down. And the first person who walks away empty-handed gets a blind card. You don't know if it's really going to help you or not, but it might. It's 1 card anyway. If you don't have majority in that animal, you get nothing in any case. But you might get something good. And it just adds a little mystery to it. It eases the pain of, being second and getting absolutely nothing. So that's the way I've modified that one, just to make it a little easier. It's a minor tweak, but I do like it that way.
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah, I've not played that. I'll have to check it out.
I haven't either. It sounds interesting, though.
It's a neat game. It's very much like No Thanks, though, and that one's quicker and cheaper. So
well, there you go.
Kind of gets trounced every time because of that game. All right, so we were talking about house ruling versus fixing a game. Where do you think that line lies? Where is that line? That's a hard one to put your finger on.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It is a hard one to put because typically a house rule for us is like 1, maybe 2 things.
Yeah.
But if you start like radically changing, oh yeah, you can't place those tiles like that anymore because now you have to do this thing and then that thing, and now suddenly you've just redesigned the game, right? So
right.
There's definitely, like I said, for us it has to be it's a small tweak usually for a house rule. Like you said, 5 cards versus 4, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
What do you think, Rebecca?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't think we've ever had to change anything to such an extent. But we also try to really research our games before we get any, so we don't come across as many games that we've had to really tweak. And I'm with you. If you are changing more than 1, maybe 2 little things about a game, something's seriously wrong with it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I at that point, I wouldn't even try to house rule it. Like you said, the game's broken. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, you guys play fewer bad games than I do. That's probably it.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know. I play Dice Tower preview games.
Yes, we don't do a lot of previewing of games. We are picking and choosing. We get to pick whatever, so makes a big difference. Huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's say you have a game, you play it, what needs to be there in your opinion for you to be, fascinated enough to not make a little tweak or 2, but to feel like you're making so many tweaks that you are fixing it, and you find it worthwhile to do so? What needs to be there to grab you that much?
I would have to have an amazing theme, for one thing. And I'm a sucker for artwork.
Yes.
Like Yokohama. I love the mechanics in that game, but the art, I'm just like, not so much, and it took me a long time to get into it because of that. So I think if it had a really strong theme and amazing art, something that I'm looking at while I'm trying to figure out what's going on with these rules, then it would be worth it for me, and if it's got some mechanisms in there where you're like, wow, I like how this works, but if we could make this what we want out of it, then okay, I would see it. It's going to have to really be feeling like it's trying hard, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that makes lots of sense.
Does.
Sometimes some games feel just undercooked, like you said, and
Absolutely.
but you also feel like the effort wasn't. It's not because there was a lack of experience. It was a lack of care.
Lack of care. That's a great way to say
and
it.
that's not worth my time to attempt to fix a game that not a lot of care went into.
Exactly.
I think one of the ones that comes to mind for me was Mansions of Madness, the first edition.
Yeah.
The theme and artwork and the storytelling was so great. You could just deal with the monstrous setup and involved in. You basically had to prep for a day for that game, and we tried all kinds of avenues to streamline that. That wasn't part of the original rules, and I can't remember what they all were now. But that was something where we made radical changes just so we could get up and running quicker.
Right, but because you found that parts of that fascinating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking of too, now that you said that, Betrayal on House of the Hill, when they first came out with that, there's some weird little things in there that you're like, we're just going to have to call it as we go. Because the stories, the idea behind that is so great, but then there's just some weird little things that are fiddly. And
super fiddly.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, you know what? We're just going to do this. And it's probably, looking back, you're like, oh, that's probably not the right way to do it. Whatever, no one cared. Because we had a good time with it, and we played it the way that gave us a good experience. That's okay. I think they put the effort into that. They tried that. So it was worth tweaking and fixing for that.
Do you think there are games that you're okay doing more tweaks to because, hey, they're silly fun, it doesn't matter, and there are games that are quote-unquote too serious for that, and if the designer didn't do it, then I'm not going to do it, because this game is more, doesn't really feel like a game that's about emphasizing do whatever you want as long as you're having fun. It's more about, pit your brain against other brains.
Yeah, I don't...
So what I'm saying is that you find there are games that you feel more lax about house ruling craziness, like Betrayal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that one, in the spirit of what it is, it's a light... It's meant to be lighthearted. So I don't have a problem changing that. But if I'm going in to play, say, like War of the Ring or something, gosh darn it, those rules better be set up, because if I'm having to fix something that complicated, I'm going to chuck it out the window. I don't want to deal with it. So, yeah.
And I find that, there's a lot of that happens in, you said, like the silly, like the party games and things.
Yeah.
A lot of just rules go out the window a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just hooting and hollering, and it's just a good time. And you forget, we forgot to do that one thing, but it doesn't matter,
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the kinds of games that I can't deal with, that lack of precision, that imprecise nature of them is... This was the D&D dungeon crawling games, the Legend of Dritz.
Yeah,
and all those other
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
I played one of the early ones. I forget which one it was. Must have been the first one.
The Ravenloft?
I think it was Ravenloft.
Yeah.
It had all of the, the monsters and all of the stuff, but the movement of the monsters, unless someone taught it wrong or it's been too long and I don't remember, they were very imprecise. You were supposed to put a monster in the room. And immediately my hand goes up and I go, okay, where in the room?
Where? Yeah.
Just in the room. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
No.
So that really bothered me the entire play session. The fact that if I had put the monster here instead of here, things might have been different down the road,
Yep.
So, do you find lack of specificity a designer's issue? Do you find lack of specificity worse than a game that says kind of do whatever you want? Where do you fall in that?
The thing that where I think it falls, and this is solely based on me playing a lot of prototypes now, is that I really feel like some of that is the folks writing the rules, not so much where it was designed from, right?
True.
Interesting.
Because typically, people writing the rules are not the same people who designed. And there's a meeting of the minds, and tweaks are made, and things probably get dropped off and forgotten. So, like you said, Ravenloft there, that's a perfect one. Oh my gosh, that drove me crazy. And they've since fixed those things in the subsequent games. But, so I think that lots of it comes down to those terrible rules. And there are, as we all know, rule books in general are not great.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do an episode on how to rule book.
Yes, please.
Stay tuned for that. See, I have a very low tolerance for lack of specificity in gaming. I just do, which is why I have I have horror games that have measurement in it. You know, where you're supposed to measure like how much this unit moves, 5 inches. No, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that because that might matter. I mean, yes, a couple of, just a sliver, a 16th of an inch here doesn't matter, but you add up a 16th of an inch over, 16 times, that's an inch difference. I just can't deal with that. And so when a game that is not a silly game, it's true that you are simply more forgiving with something that knows it's silly. It's like watching a dumb movie that knows it's dumb.
Yes.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But a game that's supposed to be well put together, finalized, a game that is not silly, for lack of a better term, and then has something like that's loosey-goosey, I have just such a low amount of tolerance for that. It drives me crazy. That's something I probably won't house rule. And I'll just give up on that game unless I am fascinated by some other aspect of the game.
Yeah. And not to beat a dead horse, but Ravenloft again, the problem also there is that because of that loose rule, you could game the game so easily. Oh, I put him on that other side of that line, so we make it out. So we did house rule that in the end to say, no, he always comes out in the whatever corner of the tile, or whatever. So, but I think that's a perfect instance where we enjoyed the game enough that we said, okay, this is how it always is,
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's otherwise dealing with that feeling like you're doing something wrong the entire game.
Yes. Yeah, I hate
that feeling.
Yeah,
me either.
That makes it not fun, and you're not going to play it again after that. It defeats the purpose.
Because that's the takeaway, right?
Yeah.
Even a week later, it'll be like, it would have been fun. I still wonder how we do that thing right, Yep. Yeah, that bugs me.
And that's why you don't tell people that you house ruled something. Because a week later, they're not sitting around going, that card game with Z was fun. They're sitting around going, would 4 cards have been better?
Love it.
I can't make up my mind. I gotta find this game and try it again with 4 cards. I must play correctly. Anyway, anything else, folks, you want to add about house ruling?
Oh,
or have we
I had one that I was thinking of. I couldn't think of a specific example that happened to me, but have you guys tried a house rule that just totally bombed?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
I don't think so because, again, I am way less forgiving about instituting house rules. For me, if a game has a problem, a gap, that's large enough for me to feel like I must fill that gap with a house rule, I have an issue with that game anyway. I probably won't do it. I mean, my house rules are, like draw the tile early in Carcassonne or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
right.
Because, you're going to draw when it's your turn anyway. Just don't affect the game and just draw it, look at it, be quiet and wait till it's your turn.
That's a great one.
I have heard people say you shouldn't do it because you might affect the round while you already know what's coming up. I'm like, well, just be quiet.
That makes sense.
Don't do it.
We play that way as well. That's a great one.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. If we have it with something minor, like, well, why don't we try doing this first instead of last? Like you said, like drawing a card or something, and that didn't quite feel right. Okay, it was something so insignificant that I don't even remember what game it would have been.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, usually if you're doing this, it's something enough that you want to fix it. You usually, I don't know. We don't usually house rule to try something just to see how it goes. So it's not really an experiment. It's just like, this needs to happen in order to fix it, if that makes any sense. Right. So it's less unknown issue there. So.
I will say I'll do it much more likely. I'm more likely to do it if it's a solitaire game that isn't quite jiving for me and there's a little something I want to tweak about it. I might do that. It doesn't affect anybody but me.
Right.
I might still be slightly unhappy with the designer about the fact that I had to do it, but I'm more willing to do that if it's a solitaire experience because, I'm going to try it. And if I ended up wasting 20 minutes and it didn't work out and it was a bad idea, it was my 20 minutes. I didn't affect anyone else. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up, everybody, for How to House Rule. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. So, stay tuned. Next episode, we are going to be talking how to teach games. And I definitely would love not just your comments in this video. Let us know what you're thinking, what you like, don't like. Just, join us for the chat. But also tweet me your questions because if I get some good ones, we're going to fold them into that episode, How to Teach Games. I want you to tweet at me at @ZEE_Garcia your question and make sure you include the hashtag Talkin' Tower. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you both for joining me. I appreciate it. Rebecca,
it was
Mark.
a blast. Thank you.
Yes, this was great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So don't forget, some people talk shop. Hey, we're talking Tower.
That's right.
We're Ghost. Good night.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.